Hello and welcome to Inside the Mind of, a podcast where I dive deeper into the minds of some of my favorite people and people who inspire me in the wrestling community. Joining me today, one half of Wallop Media, Mr. Rylan Turner. Rylan, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited for this. I don't get an opportunity to be interviewed very often, so as soon as you came to me with this, I jumped at the opportunity.
Yeah, we have worked together a few times on Smackin' It Raw, and you made me do a politics thing not that long ago, so I said, you
I
owed
I
me one.
I did also create a show based around horror things for you and Matt because I felt bad.
This is true. This is true. So I feel like we're even after
Yeah,
this.
absolutely.
But I just want to jump right in here. How did you get your start podcasting?
Um that's a long form answer. So here we go. So I've always been into broadcasting. When I lived in Winnipeg, I attended broadcasting college. For 3 weeks before my funding was pulled because I lived with my parents, and it was $14,000 for a 9-month course that I could not afford. However, in the 3 weeks that I was there, I was getting the best grades I've ever gotten in any sort of schooling, and I was showing that I was capable of doing these things. So I guess truthfully, if you want to go back to the original origin of all of this, I frequently listen to a podcast group called Post Wrestling. Post Wrestling is based out of Toronto, and two guys, John Pollock and Wei Ting, who started on the Fight Network in Canada. Um, Basically came in one Halloween a few years back and were all let go from the Fight Network. And as opposed to resting on their laurels, they decided to pick themselves up and create their own thing, which became eventually Post Wrestling, which is it's how I get all my wrestling news. It's how I get all the like I can't watch all of the wrestling shows during the week. I can't bring myself to tie myself to like 9 hours of wrestling. So if I miss it, I check in with those guys, hear what they have to say. We have very similar thoughts when it comes to wrestling, but also society and the way it all works. So those guys are a big part of my life. You met Nate Milton a few weeks ago when we did the
I did.
politics episode. He's a part of their realm of podcasts. And Nate Milton is another guy who I've been listening to for like a decade. Always been super great with his time, and I wanted to do this. So uh, Kyle and I decided that we were going to start doing this in 2018, but we didn't know what we were doing. Essentially, we were recording into our own recording software. We didn't know how to mix it. We didn't know how to line it all up, and it just never really picked up. But about a week before AEW launched, I thought, here's an idea. Like, we can do AEW and NXT. Each of us can watch one of the shows, review them, and then flip for the next week. And it would become Wednesday Night Wallop, which was the original podcast that we started. Years after doing this, we launched World's Funniest Podcast. We launched Wallop Rewind, as well as a bunch of our other podcasts that you can listen to on the Wallop Media page. But it was harder and harder and harder to sit down every week and not get burnt out on the product. So in 2022, we decided a change needed to be made, and thus we created Wallop Media, where we were going to find a day a week that we were going to post something, but we were not going to be I don't know the word I'm looking for here. We weren't going to be like expected to watch the shows every week and have an opinion every Wednesday night. We didn't have the time or the energy to do that, but we wanted to expand too. We wanted to talk about
Mhm.
sports. We wanted to talk about movies and food and all kinds of stuff. So 2022, we launched Wallop Media, and here we are 5 years after the first ever Dynamite head to head with NXT. We're going strong. So
Yeah, you guys are going very strong. Like you said, you guys have a plethora of different shows you guys do under the Wallop Media brand. Yeah, because like when I first met you, you were still Wednesday Night Wallop. So, and Matt still calls you that every once in a while, and I think it's funny.
Every once in a while. We
Slips
actually
occasionally.
we hooked up with Vince first. Vince was a guy who was in one of our group chats on Twitter, and we got him for, I think, a few sports shows that I was doing under my own umbrella back in the day. And we met him, and eventually I met Juss and his Getcho crew. They were on one of our first specials that we did for Wednesday Night Wallop back in the day. And we've just always kind of stayed connected, but it wasn't until I think 2021, 2022 that we came on Smacking It Raw for the first time. And a love for both of our podcasts was had on that night, and we've been frequent. Like I do believe we were your guest of the year last year.
You very well might have been. I'll have to go back and look. Like I'm not. It's not even my like podcast. I'm just the co-host on that podcast. I will have to go back and look. I think you might have been, because it came to the point where so many of our friends were on consistently. We're like, well, they don't count because they're basically parts of the show. So we had to think of people who weren't on as frequently, but we still loved.
Right.
So it probably was you guys, realistically. Like, let's be fair. You guys are dope.
I'm almost 100% sure I watched that episode, and that I was sitting there just cheesed out that you guys would think of us of all people. But no, when it comes to like I said, when it comes to podcasting and stuff like that, Kyle is my cousin, which a lot of people don't realize. We grew up together. His mother is my aunt. And yeah, like so Kyle, we grew up in the N64 era. We played a lot of wrestling games, but Kyle kind of fell out of wrestling 2002, 2003, and I stayed strong through that terrible era of wrestling. And it wasn't until Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega locked horns in New Japan where Kyle was actually really interested again. And that's kind of what birthed all of this. But yeah, so here we are now, and like it's good. It's been good. It's really therapeutic, I find.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do this weekly, not this one specifically, but my show weekly, plus Smacking It Raw, getting off every 2 weeks. I have said it multiple times on this show, many others. It's the only thing that gives me serotonin is podcasting. So I get it. Trust me.
You should try mushrooms.
No, thank you. Never done a drug in my life. I will say that.
Hey, you know what? Good for you. Good for you for that. I love hearing stuff like that as a recovering addict. It's nice to hear stuff like that. People living their lives without that. And don't get me wrong, I like to party. But that being said, I live a much different life than I lived 8 years ago. So
yeah, of course. So with all of the different shows you guys do under the Wallop Media brand, like you said, a lot of different stuff, and you guys release different stuff every month. Do you have any favorite episodes of anything you've done?
Ooh, this one's fun. So last Christmas Day, we always have a Christmas Day episode. We plan this stuff. December's a big month for us. We have our Jager's Eve special, which is myself and DK, who hosts World's Funniest. Years ago, we drank at a bar and drank Jager bombs until we were basically blind. And we just decided on that day it would be Jager's Eve, December 23rd of every year. So every December 23rd, since we've launched the podcast, we release Jager's Eve, which is basically our office Christmas party. We talk about our Spotify Wrapped lists. We talk about food. We talk about what's going on in the world, all kinds of stuff. And we just laugh and have a good time. It's usually like 2.5 to 5 hours, depending upon 5 hours was too long. That was the first year. And by the end of that podcast, you could not understand anything we were saying. It was awful. But we have a lot of fun with that. So I always enjoy Jager's Eve. Number 5 is coming up this December. So that'll be a lot of fun. But last Christmas, myself and Kyle sat down with our favorite chef, Jack London, who was also on our politics show a couple weeks ago, to discuss holiday food. And Kyle and we did our over-under show where we discussed holiday food. And man, it was just so much fun. Because me and Kyle are obviously Canadians, so we have our traditions and our family. But
Yep.
Jack brought so many things to the table that we had never heard of before. So that specific episode really stands out. We also did one with him where we did an over under on fast food, which again, like we only have so many fast food places up here.
Yeah.
So to hear about the Sonics and the Hardys and stuff like that in the States was kind of fun. Getting off of food though, we did a 90s music over under a few months ago. Over under might be my favorite show we do right now. Kyle created it, and he's done such a good job with it so far. We always have great ideas. We always have great guests, and we have a lot of fun with it. But favorite episodes, man, I love torturing Kyle with bad wrestling. So any episode of Wallop Rewind is almost guaranteed to be bad unless Kyle picks the show. And even sometimes when Kyle picks the show, it's bad. God, what else? I'm trying to think now. Some of those pandemic shows that we did Money in the Building, which was the review of the 2020 Money in the Bank. That was a lot of fun. I think about halfway through that show, I started feeling the edibles real hard. So we had a lot of laughs. World's Funniest Podcast for me is my therapy session every month. It's where I get to get everything off my chest, whether it's funny, whether it's not. We sometimes we get really serious on that show. Sometimes we talk about some dark stuff, but we try to make each other laugh every month. And I host that show with my friend DK, who I've known for years. We used to perform music together, and we love to make each other laugh. So we get together once a month and we do that. We sit down for an hour and a half to 3 hours, and we just crack jokes and talk about our lives, and it's kind of like going to a therapy session for me, because I feel so good when I come out of every one of those episodes. We haven't done a bad one, not a single bad episode. And honestly, I think a few months ago we did one testing my new laptop out, and it ended up being one of the funniest episodes we've ever recorded. And we had nothing prepared. We were just like, let's do a test, and we did like an hour and a half, and it was great. So, and this is no knock on Kyle, because every time Kyle comes on World's Funniest Podcast, he's hilarious. But that one for me does the most mentally that I could ask a podcast to do for me.
Okay. Listen, I respect it. I'm one of those people too where I have multiple favorites of different things. So trying to pick one or a few is very difficult. So I completely understand that. See, you're also like helping me like transition perfectly. So you brought up Jaeger's Eve. You guys didn't expect to do what you did that first night, that first year. And this is unique for you guys because you typically don't film anything live.
No, not very often.
Rarely. You'll rarely do a live thing. Like the politics things we did.
We did WrestleMania last year. We did that live 2 nights in a row.
Yes. So the rare occasions you guys go live. So this could be a little different from other people I've asked. Any unexpected moments that happen during any of the shows that, like, you know, caught you off guard, laughing, crying, what the hell, like anything you can think of?
I don't know so much about unexpected, but so I have a friend of mine at work, one of my best friends in the world. Her name is Bree Gillingham. She made her debut on World's Funniest Podcast last year in an episode titled Black Market Goldfish. And what I didn't expect out of that episode was for her to fit in so well to what we were doing. So her and DK both come from very small towns. They grew up very similar. Lots of hunting, lots of fishing, lots of country stuff. I'm a city boy. So living in a small town is a culture shock for me. Everyone's too nice. The streets are too clean. There's not enough homeless. It's wild. But when those two started talking to each other and sharing stories, I was in my own little world. And we literally, I think we spent an hour trying to help Bree set up so we could record it properly, because at the time StreamYard was not working for DK's computer. So we were still recording on software, mixing it, and then whatever. And to get her, who uses an Apple, iPad, or what is it, Mac
Mac.
computer,
Yeah.
to try and figure out how to get that thing working was a pain in the ass. But once we got the show going, it was one of the best episodes we've ever done. It immediately opened up a spot for her on Jager's Eve. So you can expect next month she'll be one of the many guests we have on Jager's Eve. But no, I haven't laughed that hard in a long time. And I needed it. I really, really needed those laughs. And yeah, no, if it's hard because when we pre-record everything, if there is an unexpected moment, we just edit it out.
Yeah.
And it's pretty seamless. RJ, who works for us, does a phenomenal job with our music and editing and everything. But yeah, unexpected, mostly just the fact that I didn't know that those two were going to get along like this, and she's become a forever guest because of it.
Yeah. And that's specifically like why I asked, because you guys do pre-record everything. Like I have like done like breaking news on a live show before. Like crazy shit has happened while I'm recording. So I just like react as it happens. So I'm always interested, like, people who pre-record, like, do you cut them out? Like, do you contemplate cutting stuff out? And having someone else do it for you too is very interesting, because I do everything myself.
Well, you're a warrior for that, because I am not a technical master. I've tried to do it myself. I think it would be easier now that we're on StreamYard to get into it myself. But we have somebody like I said, we have a producer who does all our music and editing. We have a girl who does all of our artwork for our show.
Okay.
Because Kyle and I are the talent. And that's kind of how I feel about it anyway. We can't be wasting our time too much on the other things. We have to keep our voices strong for having our opinions.
Of course.
No, I'm very indebted to the people we work with, because without the RJs or the Maisies, we wouldn't be where we are. We look good, we feel good, we sound good. And that's, I think, the three things when it comes to podcasting that are crucial. You have to be confident in your work. Like, a lot of people don't understand why I re-listen to my podcasts. I'm looking for things I can improve on. I'm not an egotistical son of a bitch who just loves the sound of his own voice. I oftentimes skip my voice as often as I can,
Mhm.
but I do look for things that I can improve on. Am I doing ums and ohs too much and stuff like that? So yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wouldn't be for RJ and Maisie, and especially Kyle. Kyle likes to pretend like he doesn't do a lot of work for the podcast, but number one, he funds us. Number two, he has so many great ideas. Like Wrestle Quizdom was Kyle's idea. Kyle puts together that quiz every single time we do it, and he's phenomenal at it. He came up with the
Mhm.
over under. He came up with Fantasy Booking Island. He came up with a lot of this stuff, and he keeps me grounded, because there are plenty of times where I could just go off and start running my mouth about this, that, or the other thing. But without Kyle, I don't feel grounded. When it comes to wrestling chatter, anyway, and sports chatter especially, because our sports show, I've said it on the show before, and I'll say it here again. That show is 90% Kyle talking and 10% me listening. Um,
I get it.
so yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. It does. Um, see, I am the same way. I used to like listen back and listen for the ums, and I try and catch myself every once in a while. But then at this point, I'm just like, fuck it. It's raw.
There
It's
does,
real.
like, there does come a point where I just we put out a show every Friday, right? So like, I just sometimes I don't have the time to catch
Yeah.
up on. I have a son, I have a life outside of the podcast, and Kyle does too. So like, certainly there now I'm more comfortable in my own shoes. I'm more comfortable being behind the microphone, that I don't go
Mhm.
back and criticize myself as much as I did. But when we do a really good show, I like to listen to it back, especially the world's funniest, because I still laugh at it. I still think, oh, I forgot about that joke. Or we had Matt on a couple weeks ago, and I was like, what are we going to title this episode before we ever put it out? And he said something in the episode where immediately I was like, nope, that's the title right there.
Yeah, he's good at that. He gets mentioned in almost any one of these, so when he listens to this tomorrow, sorry, Matt, I tried. I tried not to mention him and he gets mad at me when I do. But sometimes he's the link between me and people, so I kinda have to bring him up. And it
Matt's
happens.
a phenomenal podcaster. So I love working with all you guys. Working with Matt on World's Funniest was like one of the most eye-opening experiences because I was like, does he have stories? Does he really have stories? Well, he had fucking had stories. He has
Yes. Oh,
he has some
yeah.
good ones. And he came
That
dressed as mankind. Like, come on.
oh, yeah. Yeah, that's Matt. No, like pandemic. Oh, like the whole squad of all of us would just be up for hours on end, and the majority of the time was Matt telling stories of scumbag Matt specifically. Um, just the most fun I've had not seeing like people in real life was those years. Just doing that, just because everyone got to just talk and get to know each other, and now they're all some of my closest friends, and I've met the majority of them in person the past few
Right.
years. So when you bring up life outside of podcast, because people we do stuff other than podcasting. This we have lives. This is true. What are some of your other hobbies that you like to do?
Um, so every weekend I see my son. We get up to a lot of stuff. I'm a big proponent. I don't know how to say this properly. I'm a big guy for making sure that every weekend I have my kid, we are doing something. And this past weekend he came over, we just played video games all day. But it was a day visit. It wasn't an overnight. So we got 8 hours together. Let's just do whatever you want, relax, have some snacks, have some food. We took some videos together. He wore my Attitude Era World Wrestling Federation Championship. Or complained that it was too heavy, and that I was like, well, it's because it's half the weight of you. Um,
Sure.
but I got the best picture I've ever taken of him. Hobbies, I love to game. I love to write comedy. I would love to one day do stand up comedy. I fancy myself a funny guy. I've always fancied myself a funny guy. A friend of mine years ago. I've always had relationship troubles, right? So I was really down in the dumps about some relationship that had ended. And a buddy of mine had said to me one time, he goes, "You know, dude, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you talk like. If you're funny, if you're a funny guy, and I know you're a funny guy, you can do whatever you want." And I took that very seriously. I've never done stand up before, but I'm ready. I'm ready, and willing, and able to get up there and perform. And I think the first moment I realized that was I was at a family get together years ago. It'd been my first visit back to Winnipeg since I had left. It'd been about 5 or 6 years since I left. And I was telling stories about my life over the last 5 years. And I realized at one point, I was like, wow, I have the whole room's attention. There's like 15, 20 people in the room. And that felt good.
Mm-hmm.
So being an entertainer in one way, shape, or form, whether it's music, comedy, podcasting, whatever, is something that I want to go towards and I'm very passionate about. When it comes to like other hobbies, like again, I play video games. I love to cook. I've been a cook for 15 years. Uh, I know my way around a kitchen. Trying to think if there's anything else really. Um, really passionate about music. Don't have anyone in my life that I can do music with. That has the time, but I would love to get up on stage one day and do a concert, some sort of performance. That's a dream of mine, and it's not going away anytime soon. So that's something I want to work towards as well. More recently, I think I mentioned this a few months ago when I was on Smacking It Raw. I went to a buddy, my best friend's wedding in Winnipeg in the summertime, and I kind of looked around at everyone, and I saw how accomplished everyone was in their lives, and I felt kind of shitty about myself and where I was, and I decided to make some strides to get healthier, get better, and put myself in a position where I would be successful. And while I have fallen off the wagon a little bit with some of that, I'm starting at the gym this week. I want to make positive changes in my life to put myself in a position where I can be the healthiest, the happiest, and the best smelling guy in the room. So,
Okay. I will say the chef for cooking for like 15 years definitely threw me. I was not expecting that. The music you did briefly tell me before we started recording that you were a theater kid, which
I
I
was.
was a choir kid, so
Okay.
yeah.
I wasn't that good. I wasn't that good at singing.
Yeah, and eventually it's very hard to see, but like I have a Phantom of the Opera tattoo. I want this to be all music eventually,
Yeah,
and then this will be all horror.
You're making me do this.
I didn't make you do anything.
Well, you said you want your arm to be all music, and that's kind of what I'm going for as well. So I have, and this guy's controversial. I understand. I have a Marilyn Manson tattoo right here. One of my favorite Marilyn Manson songs,
Okay.
Smashing Pumpkins, and 9 Inch Nails, which was my first concert. So
Nice.
eventually, my whole arm will be music. Probably get my son's name on my heart at some point. But my son was also named after one of the most famous guitar players of all time. So it's sort of music too.
You're like, it counts. I swear it counts. Video game wise, what do you play? Like, what's your favorite game?
2K wrestling every year. Every year, that's the only game I pre-order. I say that, but I do pre-order some other ones sometimes. This year specifically got really into Starfield for a period of time. Okay, so a lot of people had issues with Starfield. And when it comes to video games, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about how games should be made. And I say this very seriously. A lot of these people who complain about the video games that are made today do not remember having to play some of the games we had to play when we were kids. Because I'll give you an example. Star Wars Outlaws came out a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
A litany of people complaining about this game. Oh, it sucks. It's broken. It's this, it's that. I almost finished the game. Almost. Unfortunately, I got to the point where there was a game-breaking glitch which wouldn't let you finish the last mission.
I heard about that, yeah.
And then I quit. I did enough. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the game. I had a fun time. Starfield, same thing. Lots of complaints about bugs and whatever. I never had any issues until I realized that I should have been saving a lot more safer throughout the game. Mm-hmm. And I got myself into a mission where I was on this ship that was exploding as I was trying to get out of it. And I had about this much life left. And I got to a point where I had to walk through this doorway. And as I walked through this doorway, an explosion went off and killed me every single time. So I thought to myself, okay, I'll just go back and retrace my steps and get to a point where I'm not fucked. Well, unfortunately, I had been saving so much that it literally was just 2 minutes before that. I still had the same amount of health. There were no health packs around. And then if I went back any further, it was the first level. I was a level 1. And I was in the 40s at this point. So I rage quit that game.
Valid. I would have done the same thing.
My favorite game of all time is still probably Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm a slut for a Western. Clint Eastwood, not fucking John Wayne. Fuck that guy. His movies were boring anyway. I love Clint Eastwood. I love Westerns, and that game is such a beautifully told story. There's so much to do. The last playthrough I did of Red Dead Redemption 2 took me 5 months because I did everything. I hunted. Yeah. I went out and did bounties. I started to look for secrets and stuff like that. I just enjoyed the game for what it was, and fuck did I ever grow a hell of a mustache. So I would probably say that is end all be all favorite game of all time. I do love basketball every year. Really getting back into hockey this year. I will say the college football game that came out this year, tremendous game. And I hate football games, but that game was a lot of fun. Right now, I'm really into UFC 4 because UFC 5 is not on Game Pass yet, and I'm not paying $50 for a game that was poorly reviewed. But I'm only into UFC right now because I watched the Tyson fight on Friday, and boxing and fighting is all what I'm into right now.
Oh, that awful fight that happened. Yeah.
Yes, but there were 3 fights before that were phenomenal.
I saw via Twitter. I wasn't home this weekend, but me and my friend were like, let's try and catch like the last like bit of like maybe we'll be able to catch like the actual fight. But then her mom was using 2 different things to watch Netflix. We were like, well, what the fuck, Kelly? Why are you watching it on everything? So we literally got to see the last round of Mike Tyson and Jake Paul.
Oh, that's rough. That's rough.
I was like, this is awful. And it looked like it was filmed on like a Razor phone. It was atrocious. Like, they gotta fix that shit come January 6th because I need the Monday Night Raws to go smoothly.
Never mind. The NFL is doing Christmas Day games this year on Netflix. And I can only imagine everyone was worried until they heard that 66 million people watched that. Like, I'm sorry, that's a big number. And you know what? I will say, fuck Jake Paul. I'll start with that. But Jake Paul put those women on. He put them on in Madison Square Garden, and he put them on Netflix. And those women that boxed each other, Amanda Serrano, and I cannot remember the
I
Katie
don't remember the other girl's name.
Those women proved above and beyond that women's boxing is something that we should be watching, should be paying attention to. That was the best boxing fight I've ever seen in my life. And I recommend
it. Really good.
It's just a bloodbath for 10 rounds, no blocking. Just let's throw punches until one of us falls over, and no one fell over. And I will say, I commend Jake Paul for getting those women paid properly, because they would not be paid properly with the WBC. They would not be paid properly with the UFC. And as much as I can't stand the Paul brothers, and I say that, I think that we need to recognize that is a positive thing. And, good for that. Good for him for doing that, because he could have made a whole spectacle about him. And yes, it was a whole night leading up to that garbage fight with him and Tyson, but we were treated to some very, very good boxing up until that moment.
True. And then we got to that, and everyone was just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, 100%.
But I'm not surprised. But this next question, I'm very intrigued as to what your answer is going to be. This is one of my favorite questions I ask everybody. So you get to have a dinner with 3 wrestlers, dead or alive. Who are you picking and why?
Bret Hart's one.
Of course. Sure, no way.
Canadian. I just want to hear him talk about Bill Goldberg for 4 hours. No, Bret Hart's one. I think for a long time in my life, Chris Jericho was one, but obviously, we're from the same hometown. But politically and socially, he's not a good person. I can't stand behind that. I wish Chris Jericho was still the Chris Jericho of old, because I loved Chris Jericho for a long time. And it meant a lot to me to be represented by somebody on screen. A lot of people talk about not having representation, but Winnipeg is a city in Canada that a lot of people forget about. And it's a hard city, much like Chicago. It's cold. It's cold 9 months out of the year. And I mean like minus 50 cold. Like awful. Just awful.
No, thank you.
So Chris Jericho was a guy like that for me for a long time, but I would almost put Kenny Omega in his spot now, just because Kenny Omega is also from Winnipeg, from the specific area of town that my mother grew up in. And he's proven time and time again to be socially a very good person. And I would just like to pick his brain. The last one. The last one for me. Can I make it 3? Can I invite 3 people to this dinner?
Like,
3
do you
more
want
guys to the dinner?
to?
I think you'll like the answer though.
Sure.
The New Day.
Okay, well, they count as one unit. That's fine.
Kofi Kingston has been a guy who I followed since the beginning of his career, always loved his in-ring work, didn't know he could do what he could do until Kofi Mania really took off. I've always loved Xavier Woods. I've always loved Austin Creed, whether he's in TNA, whether he was in WWE. I love Up, Up, Down, Down. But my guy, Big E, a guy who can make me laugh by just simply saying big, meaty men slapping meat. And talking about how much he wants that match with Bill Goldberg. Their podcast was special. And I'm very sad they don't do it enough anymore or at all anymore. It made me feel different about wrestling and made me feel different about it was nice to have a perspective of a wrestler of color talking about the trials and tribulations of things they go through in the business. But ultimately, it felt like 3 friends who really loved each other just talking. And sometimes that's the best thing. So I'll go Bret Hart, I'll go Kenny Omega, and the New Day.
That's a very solid list. I think that might be the first time New Day has been mentioned. Any member of New Day has been mentioned in that question.
I love it.
I'd have to go back and look. But Bret Hart is a popular answer. The Rock is a popular answer. Eddie Guerrero, also a very popular answer.
Eddie Guerrero, that's great. But here's the thing with The Rock. After that documentary came out this summer, I don't really want to have a conversation with that guy.
That's true. Everyone before all of the past episodes have been before that happened. So
fair enough.
I'll say that as the caveat there.
I would like to talk to Stone Cold Steve Austin about his opinions on CTE because I don't understand how you don't believe in science, but that's just me. I'd also really love to talk to Eric Bischoff. I like a lot of people shit on Eric Bischoff because he can be a bit of an abrasive character, but a lot of people forget that he's the only guy in the wrestling business who ever beat Vince for a significant amount of time. And I would just love to pick that guy's brain about television and production and stuff like that. I think it would be an interesting chat. So
yeah, I think Bischoff might have been mentioned once before, but probably for the same exact reasons. He does have one of those minds where he has been in the business for a long time and was one of the only people to beat Vince McMahon for the longest time. It would be very interesting. You know what? Hey, I always say shoot your shot. Hit him up. See what happens.
Well, I can't even get on the list for media for WWE. I don't think I'm getting on WWE, or I don't think I'm getting on Bischoff's radar. But
trust me,
time will tell.
Time
will tell.
Yeah, I've been trying. It's a pain in the ass for the media stuff, not Bischoff. I haven't tried Bischoff.
Shout out to Will Gray for getting me the email to do that, though. I appreciate that greatly. Next time the WWE is in Toronto, I will definitely try again.
Elimination Chamber next year.
Yeah, I don't want to go to that. I wanted to go to Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank I would have loved to have gone to. I don't want to go to a show where I got to watch 2 cage matches where I can't see anything.
That's fair. That is very valid. Money in the Bank is a very interesting thing to watch live because shit gets dicey. So you're like, oh, these people are going to die. It's actually scary. You kind of mentioned it slightly earlier. Do you have any advice for anyone, whether it's podcasting wise, professional, personal, any advice you want to give to the people watching?
Don't pay attention to the numbers you're getting download wise for a long time. They don't mean anything. Make your content better. Don't worry about how many people are jumping on to listen to your podcast, or don't worry about how many people are downloading your podcast. You're still new. I've been doing this for 5 years, and guess what? I'm still new. I learn things every day. The technology grows every day, and we like video podcasting was not as prominent as it was when me and Kyle launched, which is why we don't do a lot of video podcasting.
Mhm.
Now we're opening ourselves up a little bit more to the idea of trying and potentially working it. You guys have helped a lot with that, actually. Being able to come on your show, being able to come on Get Show has been wonderful for Kyle and I to kind of experience the ride of being live
Yeah.
and of being able to see everybody and talk to everybody and then look back and be like, oh, I look like I'm a little too stoned there, or maybe I smoked too many cigarettes there, or whatever the case may be. Um, but no, I'm a big proponent of stop worrying so much about what your numbers are now. They will grow as your content gets better. When we switched to StreamYard, we hit a wall, a big wall. We had 6,000 followers on Podbean, but guess what? 95% of those are bots, and we're not getting any interaction. Now we
Mhm.
get interaction because we communicate with other podcasters, we go on other shows, we open up ourselves to do other things and not be stuck in a rut. So
Mhm.
if you're starting a podcast and you want 100 downloads, guess what? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen the first time. We got lucky that when we first started our podcasting, we started doing a show called Dances with Bulls, which was a companion to the Michael Jordan Bulls documentary that happened to drop on Netflix during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And we were getting 80 to 150 downloads per episode. But the reason we were getting that is because it was timely and because everyone was at home
Yep.
constantly. And that was great. Don't get me wrong. I still to this day very proud of those episodes. I wish we would have finished it. Unfortunately, I was having computer and relationship troubles at the time. So they
Mhm.
did not compute with finishing that series, but hopefully one day we can.
Mhm.
Um, but no, don't focus on that stuff. Focus on making you the best version of you can be.
There we go. Yeah, like I've been doing this for 4 years. 3 have been specifically ShElite, and because I'm the one that like I see all the numbers, I do all the uploading, I look at everything every day, so it definitely fucks with you. And I've learned to just be like, okay, well, I thought that was a great episode. Other people apparently didn't. But like jokingly, I'm like, no, it's fine, whatever. And it's one of those things where everyone has a podcast, and it seems like everybody has
Yes.
a wrestling podcast.
I was just about to say, like, understand too that the niche you're working in may be already surrounded by a bunch of other people who have more money, more time, and more availability to put out content more frequently. YouTube is a
Mhm.
big thing. We really don't touch YouTube all that often. Um, because I want to be good at what we're doing before we get to a point where we're doing that on a consistent basis. And I think Kyle agrees with me on that. Like we've talked about putting out merch before, but like to who? To the to the
Yeah.
people who I mean, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of places where it's not going to cost you a lot of money to have merch available, but I also don't want to look at how many shirts we've sold over the last week and be like, "Huh, that zero is just getting bigger." Like I want to feel confident that we can do it. Now, I think that time is coming for us. I think that we can start at least trying to
Yeah.
or try to, get stuff out there. But I don't think it's going to be like a pro wrestling tease site. I don't think it's going to be anything like that. I think that we need to make sure that number one, our content means more than anything else. And if we're
Yep.
putting out good content and we're bringing in viewers and we're bringing in guests, that's a big thing too. Like having you and Vince and Matt and Juss and Will and everybody on these programs helps. So
Yeah.
community is a big thing. And Kyle mentioned it when we were doing all our thank yous on our 5-year anniversary show. we've been able to build a really great community around us over the last 5 years. And I don't see us stopping anytime soon. Every time we link up with somebody, we have a great show. We have a great experience. So it's just about expanding on that, doing more of that. And hopefully, one day, maybe it'll be 10 years, our 10-year anniversary. Maybe it'll be our 15 or 20. But one day, I feel very confident that we're going to have a spot at the top. So
yeah, and honestly, you probably will, and you should have that mentality. So, and having a good community around you too.
You got to have that Taylor Swift mentality. Okay. You got to go into it going, hey, you don't want to give me my record money. I'll re-record that record and then fucking fuck you. You got to have that Taylor Swift
literally
energy.
Can't
stand her music, but love the hustle.
She does have a few bangers, I will say. Like, I'm not a big Swiftie.
A few.
Listen, don't blame me. Banger. I'm just saying.
Shook it off or shake it off. Banger.
Like, banger. She has good music. So,
she's in Toronto for the next 7 days, so I'll hear Jesus.
About it. Oh yeah, my friend just went down to New Orleans to see her. I did not go. I took her to see the movie. So
here's my thing. That's another thing too about Taylor Swift is and I know we're veering way off topic, but
that's okay.
The hustle to perform 7 days in a row, that's no little concert. Like, no, I've seen Lady Gaga live. If Lady Gaga was doing that 7 days in a row, I'd be just as impressed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for real.
I mean, all the power to her to get that money and go out there, get that bag and create an aura around yourself where little girls have somebody to look up to, that you don't have to worry about her being in the tabloids for getting fucked up on the weekend or doing drugs or whatever. She seems like a somewhat genuine person. Could be just how the media covers her. I don't know.
Yeah, she's just going to
a lot of breakups. A lot of breakups. Yeah. A lot of songs about guys. A lot of songs. I like John Mayer. I like John Mayer a lot. Anyway, let's get off Taylor Swift, and why don't you continue the interview as I've hijacked it?
Oh no, it's fine. Listen, TC went on a conspiracy theory tangent that made the episode 2 hours long. I just let it happen at this point. It's fun. It makes it more entertaining.
Fair enough.
But if you could write an autobiography of your life, whether it's your whole life, a part of your life, the future, whatever you want, what do you want the title of your autobiography to be? And if you're comfortable, tell me why.
I have written an autobiography about my life. I actually did that for my grade 12 final project in English when I was getting extra credit. Okay. It was basically just a black book because I was 22 at the time. So it was just a list of all the girls that I had slept with over the last few years and how much they broke my heart. I'll never get my best friends reading that and being like, we're like side characters in your autobiography and we see you every day. And I was like, that's a good point. I would like to rewrite that. What would it be called? God, I wish you would have asked me that off air so I'd had some time to think about it.
You wanted to go into this blind.
That's true.
I did offer, for those wondering, I did offer him to see, because it's the same questions for everybody. I was like, I'll send you the episode I did with Vince so you could see. But he wanted to go in blind.
No. I like that I went in blind with this one. It's got to be W something. It's got to be W something. Okay. You'll know why in a second.
I'm definitely intrigued, I will say.
Rex, Wrestling, and Wallop. Because a portion of my life has been a bit of a wreck. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a recovering drug addict. Spent many years in my last few years in Winnipeg, not okay. And the reason I moved away from Winnipeg was because I needed to clean my life up And it led me to this place where I've made a great amount of friends. I've had a consistent job for 8 years.
Mhm.
I have a son, and first and foremost, I have a son who is beautiful and lovely and the sweetest kid in the world. And I would never ever want to turn the clock back on that one.
Yeah.
Every experience I've had with my life has been a lesson. I don't look back on my life with any regret. I look back and be like, I could have handled that better, but I don't look back on the 2 years that I was addicted to drugs as a negative. I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, you know. I and I was in my 20s. That's what you're supposed to do in your 20s. You're supposed to have a lot of fun. I had too much fun. And that can happen. A lot of people think there's no such thing as too much fun. That's a lie. That's a lie that you tell yourself when you feel like there's nothing more to life but fun. Um,
Fair.
but yeah, Rex, uh, wrestling, and Wallop, because it encompasses kind of everything. Like I feel like like I said, a period of time I was a wreck. I've always loved wrestling since I was like 8 or 9 years old, and Wallop is where I'm at now.
That's beautiful.
I appreciate it. I feel like
I
the
love
hottest
that.
girl at the dance.
Rylan, you're the prettiest girl at the ball.
Well, I did dress up
And I've seen you in a whole ass suit before for a podcast, so
twice, twice,
twice.
twice.
I've seen it. Yeah, that was like the second question that I always love asking people, because it's like, what do you choose to do? What do you want to do the whole life? Like, some people have just taken sections of their life and been like, this is the title for that part of my life.
Right,
And I love hearing people's answers, because again, the whole purpose of this podcast is to get to know people. Like, we're wrestling podcasters, but what are we underneath that?
right.
So like, that's what this
Oh,
all is.
and I will say to Rex, you have to be a little bit of a wreck to work in a kitchen. So no one who works in a kitchen is fully put together. You're some sort of vagabond. You're some sort of like misfit of sorts. You've had something
Mhm.
in your life that's happened. I've never met, and if I have met people who are fully put together, they're lying about something. They're lying about something.
They're
Also,
lying.
never trust somebody who has ever gone to culinary school unless they're a good friend of yours. Because I've met one good culinary student in my entire 15 years of working in kitchens. Everyone else
Okay.
is a fucking egotistical prick. You have to go through it. You have to be able to handle pressure at the fastest pace, the hottest temperature, and the I don't even know. I don't know what a last reference would be, but you have to be able to handle it. And
Yeah.
I've done it for a long time. I left the kitchen when I was with my baby mama. I left the kitchen for about a year and a half, and I did housekeeping in a hotel, and I hated every minute of it. I I need more thrown at me. I need a $4,000 lunch every once in a while to make sure I know I'm alive. And that and one thing when I went back to the kitchen, I told myself, I'm going back cuz I'm good at this. I'm very good at this. And I don't feel good at a lot of things in my life, but cooking, podcasting, and being a father are three things that I'm very confident. Oh, and comedy. I'm very funny.
You are very funny. I'm the same way though. I consistently be like, I'm the funniest person in the room, and nobody believes me. I'm like, no, I'm hysterical. You guys just don't understand.
You are definitely the funniest person on Smacking It Raw. So yeah, I said it here. I said it inside my own mind. Inside my own mind.
Yes. Fuck yes. I'm
Matt is
bragging
gonna Matt is gonna
on
text
Saturday.
me.
He's gonna text me. He's gonna be like, "You pay him to say
How
this?"
many drink how many drinks did you let him have before he did this?
He told me not to let him have any. So, you know what? Hey, listen, I'll take that as a W for me. I'm the funniest person on the Smack Around podcast, as it should be. I'm also the only woman. I gotta hold shit down. I gotta stop them from
I will
arguing.
say I will commend you for that because it's easy to do a podcast with Kyle. So if you haven't been able to tell, Kyle and I are kind of different. Now, Kyle will claim that he is not as straightforward and put together as he is, and then he gets loose and wild, and that's fine. But Kyle doesn't get loose and wild like I do. And that's why I think it works with us is because
Mhm.
we argue all the time.
Yep.
But ultimately, we know that we for the most part we have the same opinion on a lot of things. To be the
Yeah.
only woman on a podcast and in a wrestling space too, I commend you for being able to being the person to hold things down and to make sure that we talk about women's wrestling. Not to say that I don't think Matt and Vince wouldn't, because if anything, after the election, Matt and Vince became the most liberal people I've ever seen on social media ever, ever, ever. And I love it. I love it because it's good to see that there are still like-minded people like myself out there who want justice for everybody. Um, but no, I commend you big ups on the fact that you're the one woman on that show because it must be a hard job.
Yeah. It. Yeah.
Especially when the rack comes calling.
Don't. No. 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 The name was said. He's going to appear sometime soon, and I'm going to lose my mind. There's a whole episode I did with the rack of this.
I
So
love that. You send me that one, please.
I will send you that one. Yeah. Matt had to keep that up for an hour.
Oof.
That was the best part about it.
Oh yes, baby. The rack is in the house, baby.
Oh, Jesus
I can't
Christ.
do it. I can do lots. I can do wrestling impressions, but Dusty Rhodes is not one of them. I don't know if that's what he's going for with the rack.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit of Dusty, a little bit of prison gay Dwayne Johnson. Like, is that what we're getting from that? I do macho pretty incredible though. I do macho pretty incredible.
I mean, would you like to share with the class or
No, get to your questions.
shit? I tried.
I'll end the show. I'll end the show like that.
Oh, okay. Well, we are kind of nearing the end, so I told you this is going to come out tomorrow. So, do you want to tell the people the future plans of Wallop Media for the next few weeks? You guys usually do your month drop of what's coming. Anything specific you want to say that's coming up soon?
Well, I mean, Making a McManiac, our series on the Vince doc on Netflix, is fully out now. All 3 episodes. First one is just me and Kyle. The episode 2 and 3, Vince Delgado joins us to cover Vince McMahon and all of his trials and tribulations. And honestly, I think we did a really good job on that. Big ups to Maisie on the photo art for that. I think she did a phenomenal job with that too. December is always wild for us. We haven't sat down to discuss our schedule yet, but we do have this Friday our continuation of our draft from last month, Fantasy Booking Island, where Kyle and I will fantasy book our rosters for AEW. We have split the roster, and I'm running Collision. He's running Dynamite. That's going to be a lot of fun. So that'll come out on Friday. And then I believe on the last day of the month, will be World's Funniest Podcast, where myself and DK will sit down with Mick Hawley, who again you met a few weeks ago, Katie, to review the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight. We are going to watch it as it throughout the podcast. We're going to skip all the shit except for Mike Tyson's ass. We're going to get that in there for sure.
Of course.
So the best part about DK is he's not on social media at all. So he will have no idea about half of the things that happen on this. And I am here for the live reaction of that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But in December, we have all of our holiday end of the year wrap ups coming. I'll start with, we always do the Wallop Awards, the Wallop Media Awards. I don't know, or the Wallopies. I'm not sure exactly what we call it, but
Wallopies is great.
That always drops New Year's Eve. So look forward to that. December 23rd, Jager's Eve 5 will be dropping. That's going to be a mess of a podcast, I'm sure. Kyle and I always do an end of the year sports show, so we'll talk about all the biggest stories in sports. We do that the same with wrestling on Wallop Roundup, which, by the way, I forgot. Wallop Roundup will be the last Kyle and I podcast of the month. This month, where we're going to cover WWE releases, AEW Full Gear, amongst a bunch of other stuff. And then, yeah, like I said, December, we're going to do. Oh, actually, we've decided. The one thing we have decided for December is that our Christmas Day show will be a over under on Christmas or holiday themed content, movies, television,
Okay.
whatever else. And we're going to be joined by Jack London once again. He's our Christmas buddy, our Christmas chef. So look forward to that on Christmas Day. But other than that, it's going to be a wild assortment of fun stuff for December.
Yeah, you guys got a lot happening. Jesus. Yeah, I was trying to write it as you go. My God, I almost ran out of room on my notebook here.
We're ambitious. We're ambitious.
As you should be. It's good to have a variety of things that you do with the podcast. So like it's this, and then it's like this show, and then it's like my normal one, and I do like random tier lists if I feel like it, and like little story times here and there. It's like little shit like that just to make it different.
Right.
And trying to make it different. Trying my best here. Do you have anything you want to ask me? I always let my guests have the floor. It can be anything.
Katie, what's your favorite band?
I'm gonna say Mayday Parade.
Okay. I'm not
specifically,
familiar. It sounds emo though.
It's emo pop punk. Yes. I've seen them like 8 times. I've met the lead singer a few times. Derek is a phenomenal man. They have really good like bangers, and then a lot of sad songs. And my name is the beginning of one of their songs, so I do love me some Mayday Parade.
That's fair. I've never run into a band where Rylan was in the title, so I like that. I like that. What's your favorite movie? That's not a horror movie.
Okay. Labyrinth.
Ooh. Oh, what is it? Smack that baby. Set it free.
Yep.
So here's a fun fact for you. So I went to my best friend's wedding this summer.
Yes.
And their song was As the World Falls Down. That was their wedding song. They did it. It was a cover from somebody on YouTube, but I'll send it to you, Katie. You're going to cry your eyes out listening to this version of this song. It's so beautiful.
Great. Can't wait.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay. Favorite book?
What I read a lot of stuff. I literally have a bookcase behind me. That's crazy. I have a few different answers. One is a series, one is just like a normal book. The series, it's called Stalking Jack the Ripper. 4 books in the series. It is considered like young adult, but like I'm 28, so I'm considered a young adult still.
You're a young adult.
I'm young.
You haven't hit 30 yet. 30 is when it all falls apart. So enjoy the time while you have it. Yeah, I had kidney stones. It was bad.
Oh my God. I'm not turning 30. Fuck this. I don't want it anymore.
I think it would be easier for you. I'm just gonna predict that. I don't know a lot about anatomy, but I think kidney stones you would have an easier time with.
Well, yes, but doesn't mean I want that.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
But the Stalking the Jack the Ripper series is very cool. Because it does. I'm a white girl. I love true crime and serial killers and stuff like that. I've been working on a Jack the Ripper thing for months. I just haven't gotten around to finishing it and or filming it, so it'll come out eventually. We'll see. So it's very interesting to read about that, and there is like the main character's grandfather, I believe, is like a mortuary, so you get to like they talk about in-depth stuff of like that, and that's very interesting for me. And then complete flip of the coin here, it's a book called Violent Minds. It is a book. Now, everyone stay with me. It's a book about a school shooting, but in 19 different perspectives, written by 19 different authors.
Wow.
It
All
is
right.
one
All
of the
right.
coolest books I've ever read in my entire life, and that's one book I recommend to almost everybody.
All right. All right. I'm not I have a lot of books, but I don't read a lot. So
I have to
definitely
get
something
back
you're gonna
into
have to send
reading.
me a link to it.
I definitely can.
I think that's it for questions from me. I would need more time to prepare for a more in-depth interview. Perhaps on Wallop Media we can do that.
I'll never say no to an interview, to a podcast. My serotonin, Rylan, I would never turn that down.
I used to take ecstasy for that.
Anything else you want to talk about, mention, what have you?
Ah, uh, okay. So, I don't know if there's anything I really want to talk about, but I will say, Katie, this has been a great experience having come on your pod. Oh, yeah. Oh, come on your podcast and have been interviewed by you. Oh, snap into it. It's been a lot of fun. And oh, yeah, dig it. I hope that you've enjoyed me. And I hope we can do this again sometime. Oh, yeah.
Yes! We got it. We got him, folks. Bring it in. That was amazing. Thank you. Oh, I love people. This was great. Rylan,
100%.
thank you for agreeing to do this and coming on here. You must tell the people where they can find you and everything Wallop Media.
Okay, well, on X for the time being, me and Kyle are going to have a long discussion about whether we're going to be on X any longer. Because let me tell you, my algorithm, a lot of stuff I don't like.
Fair.
So we're going to talk about that. We are at Wallop Media on X. We are Wallop Media on Facebook, Instagram. We are on what is it, Blue Sky? The new one, the new happy place where people can be like Twitter, but not the cesspool that Twitter is. We're on there at Wallop Media as well. We are on Threads, Wallop Media. We find us on Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts. Like, we're everywhere. We have a podcast out every Friday, whether it's morning, noon, or night. We are dropping them every Friday. I got to get back on the socials a little bit better. I've fallen apart over the last few weeks, but you can expect that I am going to be all over TikTok, all over Twitter for the time being. And we'll see what this blue sky looks like. Maybe it's going to be blue.
It might be as blue as the background is on here. Who knows?
Yeah. The name would suggest it could be blue.
I would hope it's blue. I have not ventured to the blue sky yet. I probably will, since everyone's leaving Twitter, rightfully so. I don't want to download another thing.
I'm
I'm
set
just
in
really
my
lazy.
ways. That's the only reason I haven't. I was like, you know what? I don't like what I see in my algorithm, but I like the layout. I like the layout. Don't like the guy who put it together or who's putting it together or doing it, but that's fine. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see. Maybe Blue Sky's got a dark mode that I can get into.
Ooh.
I like a good dark mode.
My StreamYard is dark mode. Always. Everything.
I've dabbled with it, but I also noticed that my face doesn't show up when I'm sitting in the dark like I am right now with a black light and some Christmas lights lighting me up. So anyway, we're getting off the point. Katie?
That's okay. That's what makes this fun. This is fun. But I will do the shameless plug for myself, even though people watching probably know everything. You can follow me on Twitter. Again, for now, we'll see what happens. Katie Wrestling 13, Linktree in my bio to take everything ShElite Showcase. Twitch.tv/ShElite Showcase and YouTube.com/ShElite Showcase. Typically Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern-ish. It's like between like 6 and like 6:30, sometimes 6:16. It really just depends. This obviously is coming out tomorrow, Tuesday. I'll get that Jack the Ripper thing done eventually. We'll see. We'll get there eventually. Just did Getting Offed, M. Night Shyamalan movie ranking. So you can check that out. Yeah, there's lots of stuff happening here. But again, Rylan, thank you so much. This was a fucking blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It was so good. I could snap into it, okay?
And that's how I'm going to end it. Bye-bye.
Dig it.